Hey guys, a few months ago I was scrolling through my phone. It was a Saturday night. I was in a quiet, I was in my living room, just spending a quiet evening by myself. My wife was out, and I want to call somebody just to chat. Not a WhatsApp message, not a text, but make a conscious effort to just call a friend to just ask how they're doing, right? Because I haven't done that for a long time. And as I was going through it, I was kind of like, oh, you know, um, I I couldn't find one friend that I want to call, and a part of me was like, okay, well maybe I don't want to bother them because they're busy, and the thing about it is it's not because we had any kind of falling out. It was just basically it came down to I haven't made the effort to stay connected for a long time. And this video is not about learning how to make new friends or to make friends. It's more or less about how, personally for me, how I felt like I had less real friends as after I turned 40. And I thought back to my 20s, when you had friends coming over all the time, and you have friends that would just call in the middle of the night, and you'll just head out to a restaurant to catch something, to grab something to eat and catch up, and you know, friends that would just kind of show up at your door with a beer, and for absolutely no reason, right? Just to hang out. Maybe you might call, maybe they might call you, late in the evening to go out to the bar or just come over to your place and hang out around the kitchen table and chat about life. And at the time, you didn't have to plan anything. You didn't have to schedule, something 2 weeks in advance. It just happened spontaneously because your friends were maybe they lived close by, or they also had a lot less responsibilities at that time. And when you're young, you think that these things would last forever, right? I mean, when I was younger, I thought we'd travel together as we got old. Even when we got married, or some of us had kids, I thought, okay, well, we'll just stay together and plan trips with our families together. And I thought that was all cool and everything, but then life happens. You got a job. Some people have kids. Start getting mortgages, and now our schedules no longer line up, and it became a chore to try to get together. And eventually, we had started getting few calls between us. We had shorter conversations, and the words like hey, let's catch up sometime became so common, but those times usually never materialize. And you start telling yourself, okay, well that's fine. They're busy, I'm busy, but you know what? We'll pick up, somewhere down the road, and but you don't. And then, you know, months become years, and then years go by without really talking to your friend or even seeing them, right? And the problem is that when we don't just, it's not that we drift apart. I think it's some of it. I'm trying to trace it back probably to my 80s, to the 80s, right? When we were growing up as Gen X kids, and we're just used to being alone. It just became the norm. Because as Gen X kids, Latchkey kids, we came home to an empty home. So we're home alone most of the time, and we got used to people not asking us if we're okay or checking up on us, and we also got used to not asking for help. So when we struggle with things, we're told to figure it out. Our parents always say, be strong. And I think this carried it into our friendships as well as we got older. And, we became a generation of adults who don't really call each other, our friends, if things are bad. We call when things are fine, and even then, not that much. Like if we need, someone to help us, move, um, things like that. But I don't remember my friend or myself even calling my friend just to talk about how things are with their health, with their family situation. Like if I know that they're struggling with a difficult time, right? It's we don't tend to reach out to one another and talk about these things. I know from a guy's standpoint, right? We often do that. For females, I'm not so sure. I'm curious to hear from the Gen X females if they feel the same way, because I often hear my wife, even though she might not see her friends as much, they always talk on the phone for hours. It seems like. Yeah, you never hear this with the guys because I don't pick up a phone and say to my friend, hey, buddy, you know what? Hey, I'm lonely, right? I'm struggling, or stuff like that, and they'll look at you like, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Right? So we don't, we keep all those feelings inside, and I think it's it kind of brought up the question, you know, for me anyways, did we lose our friends, or did we just become accustomed to being alone, right? And just embracing the silence and solitude. And I think for some of us, growing up alone, when you're a kid, it was great. I mean, for myself, I thought it was a time that I had some peace in my life because my home was so turbulent, and it was good to not hear my parents arguing every night, at least for a few hours. And I felt it was less stressful and quite peaceful. I can go where I want, plan the day that I want, and not have to make small talk. Um, but I think some other people might feel the opposite. They might have felt lonely, right? And I think when it comes to our friends, as adults, I don't think it's not like we didn't want to hear from them, or I didn't care. I think we were trained as latchkey kids that we don't really need them for things that really matter in our life. And for example, if we're struggling mentally or with a health issue. And I think for me, I felt like if I reached out to a friend, it would feel like a sign of weakness, right? Um, I'll tell you this: a number of years ago, I had a health scare, and I had this horrific stomach pain that was ongoing every day, almost to a point where it basically laid me out, and I was going to see doctor after doctor, specialist, getting all kinds of scans, and they couldn't find anything, and nobody knew about it. And I was dealing with this for almost 8 months, and the only people that found out were my students, and they only found out because they had noticed that I had lost 20 pounds because my uniform was starting to sag on me. So I started to wonder if, when I was going through this period, if I was just used to being alone and not calling friends, because during that time I often did feel alone during that health scare. I felt like there was no one really I can reach out and talk to about right? And that was probably one of the loneliest times. And I think people think that, lonely means like, okay, not not having someone around in your life. But in this case, I like I said, I like silence and quiet. But alone for me during this time was just not having anybody around to talk to who understood what I was going through, right? And eventually, I think as we get older, we don't call each other at all because maybe it's not because we're too busy, it's because we're too proud to call our friends. And it wasn't until recently I realized that it's not that my friends didn't care. It's more or less maybe that they just don't want to bother me. And I know this because this past month I decided to make an effort to reach out to old friends. And I would start to make a habit of having dinner with them, with a different group of friends each weekend, just to reconnect. And you know what surprised me most about it is when I called, they were so ecstatic to hear from me. And right away, I made an appointment to head out for dinner with them, and it was so weird because during the dinner they were surprised because they said, "Wow, you never call, and when you called, we thought that you had an important announcement to make." And I said, "No, I didn't have any announcement to make, right? The only thing I said, all I wanted to do was just reconnect with you and your wife because I think it's important for us to stay in touch." And they were so happy. And after the dinner, they were like, "Oh, let's do it again soon, right?" And so I gathered from that they were longing for connection and reconnecting with friends as well. So in the end, it made me realize that that I really did miss my friends and how important it was to have real conversations again and not to spend the evening now just endless scrolling and killing time. And most of all, I think it's really important to try to take the initiative and pick up that phone and call that friend, because they're probably in the same situation as you, right? Too proud to call and reach out and just say, "Hey, how's life going?" and have these conversations. And so I think it's very important. And so I want, if this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what your friendships look like now after the age of 40. And tell me if you found your way back to someone, or if you're still sitting quietly at home and trying to figure out if it's peace or something we got used to as a Latchkey kid from the 80s. And if you like this video, feel free to like, share, or subscribe, and feel free to check out my next video, and I will talk to you next time. Take care. Bye for now.